The auction lot read simply, derelict vessel, class unknown. No operational records. Previous owners, 14. Successful activations, 0. 14 buyers. 14 failures. And now it sat in Hangar Bay 9 of the Tethys Station salvage yard, bolted to the floor with mag clamps the size of ground vehicles, gathering dust and quiet contempt from every engineer who had ever walked past it. Ethan Cross bought it for the price of scrap. He wasn't a wealthy man. He wasn't even a particularly successful salvager. What Ethan Cross was, and had been since childhood, was stubborn in the particular way that the universe reserves for humans who refuse to accept that something is impossible simply because no one else has done it yet. He had pooled 3 years of earnings. Sold his shuttle. Called in every favor anyone had ever owed him. Signed documents that essentially said, if this kills you, that is entirely your fault. And then he had the Warship towed to a private dock on the outer ring, away from the laughing eyes of the Tethys Station regulars. The ship was enormous. That was the first thing anyone noticed, the sheer wrongness of its scale, like something that had been designed by a species that thought bigger and more dangerous were synonyms for beautiful. Its hull was black, not the flat black of painted metal, but the deep light-absorbing black of something that had been engineered to consume photons rather than reflect them. Its weapons systems, what could be identified as weapons systems, were folded against its flanks like sleeping limbs. Its bridge viewport was a long, horizontal slit that, in certain light, looked unsettlingly like a closed eye. Ethan Cross stood at the base of it and looked up for a very long time. Then he put his bare hand on the hull. What happened next was described differently by the 3 dock workers who witnessed it. One said the ship hummed, a sound so low it was felt in the chest rather than heard with the ears, like the first note of something enormous waking up. One said the hull moved, not mechanically, not in any way that could be logged or measured, but in the way that skin moves when something underneath it tenses. The third said nothing. She simply filed her resignation from salvage work the following morning, citing a desire to spend more time with her family. What all 3 agreed on was this: the ship's eye opened. The viewport went from dark to lit in a single, decisive moment. Not a boot sequence. Not a gradual power on. A decision. The interior flooded with cold blue light, and then a voice came out of the external speakers, a voice that had not spoken in 400 years, according to the records Ethan had managed to dig up, and it said, in perfect, unaccented galactic standard. Identity confirmed. Commander Cross. Welcome aboard the Relentless Sovereignty. Ethan Cross stood very still. I'm not a commander, he said. I'm a salvager. A pause. Then, you are the one who touched the hull. The ship recognizes the biological markers. The classification is non-negotiable. I bought you at auction. Noted. The transaction is irrelevant to command recognition. You touched the hull. The hull accepted you. That is the protocol. Ethan looked at the dockworkers. They looked at him. One of them had already taken out a calm device, presumably to tell someone about this, and Ethan made a mental note to ask them, very nicely, not to do that yet. He turned back to the ship. What does command recognition mean, exactly? The pause this time was longer. Almost thoughtful. It means, the ship said, that I will answer to you. And that I will not answer to anyone else. The ship's name, its full name, as it had been recorded in the naval archives of the Sovereign Compact, a civilization that had collapsed 3 centuries before Ethan was born, was the Relentless Sovereignty, Class 1 command vessel, built to carry a fleet admiral and his full staff across contested space. It had been the flagship of Admiral Darian Voss, the most decorated commander in Compact history, a man whose tactical record had never been equaled and whose methods had never been fully understood by the historians who came after him. Ethan found all of this out over the course of 3 days, during which he did not sleep very much and consumed a truly inadvisable quantity of stimulant beverages. He also found out why the ship hadn't responded to any of the previous 14 owners. The relentless sovereignty had been built with a biometric command lock, not a DNA check, not a neural scan, not any of the sophisticated systems that every species in the modern galaxy understood and could try to spoof. It was something older. Something that the Compact's engineers had discovered about human biology specifically, a biological signature buried in the electrical field of living skin, in the particular way that human nervous systems interfaced with conductive surfaces. The ship had been built for a human commander. The previous 14 owners had all been Veth, Krillian, or Soric. They had never had a chance. Admiral Voss specified, the ship's AI told him, and Ethan had started thinking of the AI as the ship's ghost, Darian's ghost, the echo of a dead man's will encoded in 4 centuries of patient waiting, that the vessel was to pass to a human successor. He believed the species had a future. Most of his colleagues disagreed. Did he know he was right? He did not live to see it. But he made provisions anyway. Ethan sat in the command chair that fit him perfectly, that had been calibrated to human ergonomics, that responded to his presence with a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature, and thought about a man 400 years dead who had looked at the galaxy and decided that humanity was worth betting on. "What can you do?" he asked. "What does this ship actually do?" The ghost of Admiral Darian Voss answered him in the ship's voice, and the list took 11 minutes to recite. When it was done, Ethan Cross sat in the dark of the command deck and breathed very carefully for a while. The first time he took the relentless sovereignty out, he had no mission, no contract, and no plan. He just wanted to see what it felt like to move something that size through open space. It felt like being the fist of the universe. The ship responded to him the way a well-trained animal responds to a trusted handler, instantly, completely, with a kind of attention that felt almost personal. When he looked at something, the ship tracked it. When he thought about changing course, the navigation system suggested the adjustment before his hands reached the controls. When he said, "Show me what you can do," the relentless sovereignty went briefly and terrifyingly fast, and Ethan Cross laughed out loud in the empty command deck like a man who had just discovered that the thing he'd bought for scrap was actually a miracle. Admiral Voss used to do that, the ship told him afterward, when they had settled back into normal speed. Do what? Laugh. When it worked. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then, what was he like? The ship considered this the way it considered everything, with a pause that felt deliberate rather than processing. Certain. He was very certain about very few things. But those things he was immovable about. Humanity. The future. The value of patience. 400 years is a lot of patience. He would have said it was exactly the right amount. Within 6 months, everyone knew about the relentless sovereignty. It was impossible to keep quiet, the ship was too large, too fast, too distinctively wrong in the way it moved. Nothing that size should move like that, should turn like that, should simply appear at the edge of a situation and make every other vessel in the vicinity reconsider their life choices. Ethan Cross took salvage contracts. He took escort work. He took 3 separate jobs that started as salvage contracts and turned into something considerably more complicated when the parties involved realized that the man showing up to negotiate had arrived in a Class 1 compact command vessel that had just casually parked itself between them and any possible exit. He didn't start fights. He ended them. Usually by existing. The Sovereign Compact had built the relentless sovereignty to be the last word in any argument. Admiral Darian Voss had used it that way for 30 years. Ethan Cross found, somewhat to his own surprise, that he had a natural gift for the same approach. "You are more like him than you know," the ship told him once, late, when the dock was quiet and Ethan was reviewing the day's logs. "I'm a salvager who got lucky at an auction." He was a junior officer who happened to be standing in the right place when the ship needed a commander. Ethan thought about that. "How long did he have you?" 41 years. He died in this chair. The command chair was warm under his hands. Old technology, patient technology, 4 centuries of waiting for the right person to simply reach out and touch the hull. Ethan Cross leaned back in it and looked at the stars. Then I've got a lot of work to do, he said. Yes, said the ghost of Admiral Darian Voss. You do. And the relentless sovereignty moved.